were you told, who were you given your instructions by?
Instructions for what?
Reconstruct this incident.
I wasn't given instructions to reconstruct it. It's just I was assigned to it.
Right.
That was requested. My assistance was requested to reconstruct it.
That's my question. Who assigned you to it?
I talked to my sergeant at the time who gave me the phone call. Yeah, I was told that, yes.
All right, and you had to be given some basic parameters of what that incident, how that incident occurred. The car was going in reverse, it's got a damaged taillight, things like that.
Some basic stuff, yeah.
What I'm asking is, I'm trying to get to is, who gave you that information? Where'd it come from?
That the car was traveling in reverse. Like, which part of the information? You asked me several different things just now.
Were you given information from multiple sources, or did someone give you a summary of what you were being asked to do? At the very beginning.
Yep.
Who gave you the summary?
The summary of the whole entire, of what?
Of the event that you were asked to reconstruct.
I was passed down when I got to the garage. That there was nobody that sat there and gave me the summary, like, that I can remember. I was told that it was a pedestrian crash. I knew there was a Boston police officer involved, that this was the vehicle, and that it was traveling in reverse. That's all they had.
Okay.
But he doesn't know who told him. He doesn't know who told him. It's basically gossip, I guess, which sounds perfectly fine for a police investigation. He's not quite sure where the information's coming from. But he hears it in the wind about these critical facts. Okay, sure. I mean, that's cool and normal. Yeah, again, it's more about the chain of custody, chain of information. It's like, I don't know who I heard it from. I don't know when. Not sure who gave me that information. So it's just emblematic of problems in chain of custody logs in a more general sense. It's more emblematic of sloppy records and sloppy procedures, and not having things documented in a way that makes things understandable. So, yeah, heard it through the grapevine. Indeed, my friend. Heard it through the grapevine. Indeed. 100%. You better believe it. Good.
And you were assigned specifically to try to reconstruct that incident.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the phrase confirmation bias?
I know the phrase, yes.
You know what it means?
I can definitely say what it means.
Let me make sure I understand this. You are the accident reconstruction expert with your associate degree, and you can't provide a colloquial definition of what confirmation bias is, which, once again, it's on the label. It's on the label. Just listen to the words and it will tell you exactly what it is. Just listen and you'll know the answer. But he doesn't know the answer with his associate degree level training. Fun.
Developing a conclusion and then trying to find evidence to fit that conclusion. Does that sound right?
You say so.
What? So even having the definition provided to you, you can't be like, oh yeah, that's the definition. You're just like, well, if you say so. Who's the expert in the room now? When the attorney is more of an expert than the witness, you got a problem, man. You got a problem. Woo!
You noted in your direct examination that there were scratches on the passenger side rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes.
How exactly were you able to scientifically determine that any of those scratches were from an incident on January 29th, 2022, as opposed to any other time?
I didn't have anything else on the time. Is that those scratches happened prior to this collision?
I'm sorry.
I didn't have any information that those scratches were caused from a prior collision. And so when I looked at the evidence, I knew it was in that same area, the right rear tail light. So when I looked at it, it didn't quite fit the pedestrian thing. So when you showed me the video, or I saw the video like a year ago on Court TV, I said that could be.
My question is, do you, as you sit here, do you have any scientific evidence that those scratches occurred on January 29th at approximately 12:45 a.m.?
What do you mean by scientific evidence?
What do you mean? What do you mean by scientific evidence? What kind of question is that? Aren't you the reconstruction expert and should have some sort of working definition of what scientific evidence might comprise of? But you're not sure what scientific evidence is. I honestly don't know how this guy qualifies as an expert legally. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. There are minimum standards for this in law. You have to show that you have sufficient knowledge and sufficient training, and or I suppose, to be able to offer an expert opinion. And how does this guy meet the test legally to be able to be here and present an opinion if he doesn't even know what scientific evidence is?
Do you have any evidence whatsoever that you can point to that those scratches occurred on that date and at that time rather than any other time in the history of that vehicle?
Like I said earlier, the video seems to appear that's what it looks like that could have been from.
Is there any way to scientifically date a scratch?
No.
No.
If you go out in the parking lot right now, even as an accident reconstructionist, if you walk out in the parking lot right now and look at a Toyota Camry sitting there, it's got a scratch on it. There's no analysis that you could engage in to date that scratch, could you?
Objection.
So you can ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Is there any way that you could, in general, look at a scratch and say, that scratch is from such and such date?
Objection.
I'll allow
Nothing
it.
more.
I'll allow it.
You cannot say. You can look at evidence and shows that it may have been older than what the newer evidence would be, but there's no way to say that specific date and time and that a scratch would come from.
Right. And it's possible that any or all of those scratches on the Lexus could have predated January 29th, correct?
No.
If that's not possible.
The ones that are on from the taillight and the other parts of it?
Scratches anywhere on the car.
Depends on what you got to pick the other scratches. You got to show me other scratches on the car.
I'm saying it's possible, since you can't date the scratch, it's possible that any or all of those scratches could predate January 29th. It's a simple question, right? It's possible.
You're being pretty broad on your scratches here.
I'm not.
Okay, no, look, guys, this is logical deduction 101. This is formal logic. This is formal logic, formal deduction 101. It's not hard. Okay? If you can't date scratches, then you can't conclusively determine any of the scratches are necessarily from after date X. That is just a necessary logic flow. If you can't date scratches, premise, it must be true that you can't tell for a certainty that a particular scratch must be after a particular date. That is just straight, no nonsense, formal logic, formal deduction. We can break out the fancy fancy markings. We can do the U and the upside down U and all those wonderful fancy with the Z and all that shit. We can do this in straight formal logic. We can do this in math. QED. And he's like, well, it depends. You're being pretty broad about scratches. No, I'm not. The premise is you can't date scratches. That is a universal declarative. I am not being broad about scratches. You're being broad about scratches, and I'm just holding you to a necessary logical deduction.
Let me ask it a different way. Let me ask it again. Is it possible that any or all of the scratches noted on that car predate January 29th?
Yes.
Any and all of the scratches?
Yes.
See, that's I'm saying you're being pretty broad. Any and all.
No, he's not. No, he's not being broad. The rule is universal. Therefore, the conclusion is universal. Damn it.
Were you informed that none of the glass pieces, not one of them, could be matched to the cup?
I don't know anything about I don't know that.
So if you knew that the glass pieces on the bumper do not match the cup, that change your opinion
Objection.
about that glass?
Can you answer that question?
I cannot.
I mean, you should be able to. You should be able to answer the question, right? If you knew that none of the glass pieces on the bumper were from the glass, then that would change a presumption in your analysis, which incidentally, you probably shouldn't have had the presumption in the first place, but never mind. But if you later learned, oh, gee, none of those glass pieces are from that glass, I would think that that would change it. And you would know, yeah, that would change my thinking because it changes a presumption that I was working from. What a silly presumption that was. Now that I know that, I would think it would, yes, you should be able to know that because you're an expert. Remember? You're an expert. So you should be able to know that, yes, if it changes a fundamental premise, it probably would influence your analysis.
You can't answer the question.
It's what was told to me as evidence
It was told to you.
By whom?
by the crime scene.
Aren't you the expert? Shouldn't you verify that?
As crime scene that was there, it says it's glass from the cup. When I did my initial inspection, that's what it was on from.
That's not what you just... Would it change your opinion in any way if you knew that the glass pieces do not match the cup?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Can you answer that question?
No.
I'm
Really? Seriously? It wouldn't impact any of your conclusions if you knew the glass was not from the cup? Seriously? It wouldn't change your conclusions in any way? Really? Mr. Expert? Okay.